Today, we examine a case that has grown far beyond a single arrest. What began as a social media post on soldiers' welfare by social media figure Mark Justice Chidiebere, popularly known as Justice Crack, has now opened up a deeper national issue and conversations about authority and accountability, security and transparency, and the fragile relationship between institutions and the people they serve. As we speak, justice remains in detention. In today's Nigeria, many citizens no longer interpret events through official statements alone. Public reaction is now shaped by experience, suspicion, history, and the realities many believe exist beneath the surface. But beyond the outrage surrounding his arrest lies a more critical question in a society where narratives are constantly disputed. What truly defines the freedom of expression, the law, public sentiment, or the realities within the system itself? Because this case is no longer about one man or one viral moment. It has become a broader conversation about power, accountability, public confidence, and the future of civil-military relations in Nigeria. Let's take a look at the video that caused the whole brouhaha in the first place.
Nigerians, look at the food that your soldiers are eating. I uploaded a video a few hours ago. It never even reached 1 hour. A military personnel sent me this picture. This is what the Nigerian army, the Nigerian government are feeding our soldiers in Maiduguri morning, afternoon, and night. Look at that rice. One small rice like that. Look at the small gari. And look at that soup that look like vomit. This is what they feed the people that are defending Nigeria. This is the food they give to people who are facing terrorists every day. Whereby we are in a country that the federal government is spending 604 million naira to rehabilitate the radicalized terrorists. Now, this is what I'm talking about. This is why I'm saying that the terrorism we're still facing in Nigeria today is as a result of Nigerian government pampering terrorists. We're in a country where the government is treating the terrorists better than the military. How can you feed a military personnel this? No wonder most of them end up falling sick. They look minorities. How would they even have strength to even carry the gun, to even face the terrorists? How would they even face the bandits? How would they face all the Boko Haram? When they don't even eat well. It's not even that their salary is that much that they can buy food by themselves. You are paying somebody below 200,000 naira and you are feeding the person like a prisoner. How can you be feeding somebody like a prisoner? Look at the food you are giving to them. Look at it. This guy sent me this picture and I asked, what's this picture? He said, this is what they feed them morning, afternoon, and night in Maiduguri. If you know Maiduguri, you know that is the hub of insecurity in Nigeria. Those guys face death every day. They do the worst every day. But look at what they're feeding them. I mean, in a country that the government is budgeting, not budgeting, they'll spend 604 million naira to de-radicalize, to reintegrate terrorists. Where did they pamper terrorists? But the people that are defending our borders, the people who are defending our citizens, the people who are defending the country, they know they treat them well. Look at it yourself. Now tell me, with this kind of picture, with this kind of treatment, how do you expect Nigerian citizens to join army? How do you expect those the younger ones to join army? How do you expect them to fight for their country?
Okay, that's a very powerful video that you just watched. Now, I have three gentlemen joining me today on Perspectives to discuss this matter further. Peter Eka, a social critic and human rights advocate. Then we have Mike Ejiofor, a lawyer and a retired director with the Department of State Services, DSS. And also Dr. Dixon Osage, who is the managing director and CEO of Debris Protection Services Limited, an international certified security and counterterrorism expert. He was also a former soldier. So, gentlemen, welcome to the show this morning.
Thank you, Ruth. Good morning. Okay,
so let me start with you, Peter. You know, you were once a soldier yourself. So, based on what you saw in that video, you know, would you say Justice Crack was right in his comments? Did they reflect a deeper frustrations inside the military?
Well, I have to play the video again and again and again. I think Justice Crack deserved national honor for calling out the Nigerian army, because what we fail to understand is, I think what he's trying to do, he's being constructive in his criticism. You know, that was a constructive criticism.
So you're saying it's very apt?
Yeah, it's very apt and it's very correct, because I went to the video again and again and again, and I want to know the reason why the Nigerian army abducted him, because he called out the army. Because we need to understand the truth. If you love a country, you must speak the truth to your country. It's no need need for us to start, hiding what our soldiers are going in the battlefield. We all know what is happening in the front line. We all know how our soldiers are being fed in the front line. We all understand how they are being paid, how much they are being paid in the front line. And a young man who came all out to say that the soldiers are not well taken care of, they are not well fed, being arrested and brutalized, I think is a shame to our security agents. What I'd expected the Nigerian Army to do is to set up a board of inquiry to examine the facts surrounding his claim and prove him wrong, or otherwise prove him right. And from my own experience, from my own experience, it wasn't a good thing. The President Chief of Army Staff, coincidentally, we both serve in the same battalion, 245 Battalion, and we're also in Operation Harmony for Bakassi Peninsula in the 90s. We are not well fed in the Army. One of the reasons why I was even discouraged from putting in my voluntary in 2003, 23 years ago, was how soldiers are being fed in the front line. And 23 years down the line, we still have the same complaint. That tells you there's an issue in the Army. There's a systemic issue that the Army needs to address. Don't train your soldiers so hard and feed them like dogs. Don't train them so hard and feed them like cows. If you go to a Ikeja cantonment today as we speak, those who sworn to protect the territorial integrity of this country are living in darkness. Go to Air Force Base as I speak. Those who sworn to protect the territorial integrity of this country, they are living in darkness. And when someone come out to call out the Army, you are going after him to pick him. It's a shame on the Army, it's on the military, and it's a shame. This action is an act of shame, because what you are supposed to do is to call up this guy and say, hey, how do you get this information? Who told you about this? How do we verify? You investigate what happened. Don't say it's all about demotivation or he's trying to demoralize our soldiers. No, these guys put their life on the battlefield. So
you're saying nothing has changed?
Nothing has changed going by what is happening. So the Army needs to go back to the drawing board and feed their soldiers very well. Last year I was on Channels TV. I made this same complaint. Justice Crack is talking about that our soldiers are not well fed in the battlefield. We have friends in the battlefield. We have brothers there. We have sisters there. We know what's happening in the country. Government should feed our soldiers very well. It's very easy. I can't put my life on the line to protect this great country and you can't give me electricity. I can't put my life to protect this country. You can't give me good food. My life is not. It's not monetary. It does not have monetary value. So whoever put his life to protect this country, let's assume it's even trade by barter. If I'm giving you my life, what are you going to give me in exchange? So those who put their life in the line to protect Nigeria must be protected and well fed. I saw how they were feeding these criminals in Operation Safe Corridor. Some of them, I even saw them eating bread and sardine. I said, hey, I have not seen soldiers eating bread and sardine in the battlefield. Why would you feed those who kill our officers and men better than those who are serving this great country? The Nigerian Army needs to go back to the drawing board. It's not about arresting. How many people do you want to arrest? Justice Crack should be a man of honor. They should even give him national honor for calling out the Army, because we all have a stake in this country and we must allow our country grow. If we want this country to grow, we must speak the bitter truth that will make sure that our soldiers and officers and men who put their life on the line to protect this great country are well paid, are well motivated, and also live in a very good environment. Go around all this area I've mentioned. This is very sad for our country. Justice Crack, I think it should be released.
That issue, that part. But let me get my other guest in. So we're going for a break right now. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Perspectives. Can I please have my guests in Abuja in the house? We have Peter Eka and we have Mike Ejiofor. Welcome to Perspectives. But I want to start with you, Peter, and I'm sure both of you listened to Dixon's very passionate response when I asked him a question about the welfare of soldiers in Nigeria. So I want to ask you, Peter, especially, social media activism drives outrage and visibility, which is what you guys are doing with this Justice Crack's case and many other cases. But why does accountability in Nigeria so rarely outlive the headlines? Are we trapped in a cycle of arrest, outrage, release, silence, and then the next scandal? At what point does social media become powerful enough to influence arrests, releases, and institutional decisions? Peter, that question was for you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yes. Auntie Ruth, we are in trouble in this country. Nigeria is in serious trouble. And until all citizens and everyone agrees that this is not a direction that any nation should be headed, we cannot take the action that is needed to reroute this country. The Nigerian military or the armed forces of any country should be one of its most respected institutions, an institution that protects national unity and territorial integrity. If we have descended to a level where we are discussing this kind of conduct and act, not even by the police, that Nigerians have unfortunately almost become accustomed with the kind of rascality, but with the military, then it calls for concern. But to your question on social media advocacy, the circle of arrest, unfortunately, it will continue so for as long as we have strong men and not strong institutions. What we are seeing play out is an absolute collapse of institutions that should be able to stand in defense of democracy, justice, and the rights of citizens. So whenever you see a circle or an incident, people come out to scream. Few days ago, even before the Justice Crack case, we saw on live video where a police officer somewhere in Delta brought out a firearm, cocked it, and executed a citizen point blank in Efron in Warri. And today, if not for social media, we probably may not have known of that story because it happened few days before the outrage. So we continue in this circle. Why? Because the absolute trust that citizens should have in their institutions are not there. So when you go to the judiciary, what kind of justice will you get? When you go to the police, is the police your friend? Now we are talking about the military. A person is in detention not because he committed the crime or he is a terrorist, but because he spoke up for the welfare of the officers. And the army, whose welfare is being spoken about, took this person, abducted, kept in solitary confinement, according to mouth reports from the person directly, tortured in this kind of manner, while the officers, some of them who complain, are being arrested and, reports of dismissal of officers. So across board, it is a tale of woes for Nigerians. But it is up to all of us to move from just social media advocacy and activism, become involved in the political process of this country to build institutions that have the capacity to dispense justice, but beyond that, to protect human life and ensure that the rule of law is upheld at all times.
Okay, that's good. Okay, can we have Mike in the house, please? Now, Mike, if justice arrest was lawful, were there any dramatic alternatives that could have avoided the public suspicion it triggered? Is there any other way they could have done that arrest without, ruffling the feathers of observers?
Well, I'll start this way. You see, the military is a regimented service. I'm not here to apportion blame either to Justice Crack or the military, but we must face facts. I can tell you that more of the blames go to the soldiers and not to Justice Crack. He was only protecting their interest. And the soldiers, knowing the rules of the social media rules of the military, shouldn't have breached that order. I mean, there's a clear demarcation between the eyebrow and the forehead. If you are not satisfied, I'm not saying the military is well taken care of. They would need to improve their welfare. But if you are not satisfied, I think the best thing is to find your way out of the service. A lot of people have resigned. And I recall when somebody was talking about the other day that some people who recruited have left. But coming to openly, grant an interview to social media would demoralize some of the soldiers the way they are fighting, and be a breach on national security, undermining the strength and the well-being of the soldiers who are also fighting. Don't also forget that these are human beings. I'm not saying that the military or the fighting forces are properly or adequately taken care of. We need to improve, but there must be rules guiding this. They could have channeled this through their authorities.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Dixon, let me ask you, what's the reality of a soldier's pay? How much are they paid now? And does it match the risk that they face?
Oh, no, not at all. You can't, when you talk about human lives are irreplaceable. You cannot equate how much an average soldier is being paid to the risk they face in the battlefield.
But I'm curious, how much are they being paid? Are you aware?
Yeah, I think when we talk about, it's in public domain. The least soldier, I think, is collecting about 100,000 soldier.
100,000
over
naira.
100,000 naira, I mean to say. That's maybe the least soldier then. But in the battlefield is what matters most to me, because those who are in the battlefield, what you see them collect, I think, minimum of 50,000 naira monthly. That's about $30. That's an abuse on operation. That's an abuse on human minds. Because I listened to Mr. Ejiofor, with due respect, we are talking about national security. When we talk about national security, it doesn't imply that you must keep quiet when things are going wrong, because it will remain till eternity. When things come on social media, it's an avenue for the military or the Nigerian army to go back to the drawing board, assess the situation, see it as a constructive feedback, because if you don't get feedback from the people, you will remain where you are. You cannot migrate forward. So for me, what I'm thinking is what I'm also...
What's their living condition like?
Oh, the living condition, sometimes the barrack differs, you know. Go to Ikeja Cantonment, you're in Lagos. Go for, investigative journalism. You won't see them with electricity there. I was in Air Force Base sometime last week. All through the night, there was no light. I was in Ikeja Cantonment. All through the night, there's no light. What will it cost the Nigerian government to build solar system for officers and men who put their life on the line to protect this country? What will it cost them to give them steady electricity? They don't have these basic amenities, and somebody will say that when you talk, you are demoralizing the soldiers. The system itself is demoralizing its officers and men. So what we should start doing is that we should hold our security agents accountable, hold the government accountable, take good care of our officers and men. It's all we want you to do, because they themselves, they put their life on the line to protect the territorial integrity of this state. So when you put your life on the line, nothing is too big or too big for the government.
In terms of when they die in the course of duty, what do they get?
Well, it differs. It differs. The military have to pay them their gratuity, pay them off, whatever the case may be. But I'm more particular about the risk. The risk presently is very imminent. The risk involved in military operation is very high. In the early days when most of our parents, my father served in the army 36 years as a military instructor. He has 4 children. He enlisted 3 of his sons to serve this country. So when we speak, we love this country. When we speak, we love the army.
What did your father get at the end of his retirement?
I can't even remember. That is his personal money. Wow. So what I'm trying to say is this: the army should look at motivation. Motivation is key to survival to every soldiers and officers. Some officers who even left the forces due to quota system methodology, and also maybe political appointments get them off the job. How are you getting at them? What do you do for the veterans? What do you do for those who have left the system? Are you keeping contact with them? Do you have a system? You communicate with ex-veterans to ensure that they stay motivated and stay connected. Because as I tell you, I'm happy to have been a former soldier of Nigeria. Even though I exited voluntarily very early, today I'm doing very well. Most of my employees are veterans, because I don't want to see a veteran out there suffering. And as Nigerians, we need to start looking at the welfare of veterans. Those who put their life to serve this country, give them jobs and tell them thank you for serving our great country, Nigeria. Whoever come out to talk about the welfare of our soldiers must not be dehumanized the way justice is being dehumanized. That is wrong from all fronts, and that should never happen again. What they have done, they've given him a political capital and a social capital, and they've even made the situation worse. If they had invited him privately, we wouldn't be here talking, but they messed up the control mechanism.
Thank you. Can we have Peter back in the house, please? No, Peter.
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay. Why do Nigerians often react to fear in security-related cases? And how much of that reaction is shaped by past institutional experiences rather than the present case?
All of the reaction, ma'am. I mean, we live in a country where a law enforcement officer can tell you that I will waste you and nothing will happen. And people have been wasted and nothing have happened. And in response to my co-panelists, with all due respect, I will want to take exception to state that on this issue of justice crack, the people who have tampered with national security and made it an issue of national security is the Nigerian army and the Nigerian military. Let us be very clear. We as citizens of this country are stakeholders in the security of this country. We are primary victims of terrorism and insecurity. Not even people like the Chief of Defense Staff or Brigadier General Adegoke, who are insulated with different layers of protection. So we as citizens want the war to be won and won decisively. And part of that war being won will include the welfare and adequate taking care of the officers. So when we talk about the morale of officers and their welfare, it is a means means to an end to ending insecurity. So when a person says it and the military comes to abduct in this kind of gangster manner, it is the military that is making it an issue of national security concern. When you talk about demoralizing or touching on the morale of officers, Anti-Root, what could be more demoralizing than working in an armed forces where the government can spend taxpayer money reintegrating so-called repentant terrorists and even employing them into the law enforcement system of that country? Have you seen videos on TikTok where terrorists kidnap people, kill them, including soldiers, and display it live? That does not incite people against the military. When in Nigeria, a chief of army staff died in a fatal plane crash with almost 10 officers killed, President Buhari was in the villa. They were buried at the military cemetery. The president did not lift a finger to go and honor his own chief of army staff. Very recently, within the last 6 weeks, we have buried senior military officers, including Brigadier General Omo Brima, who was killed and buried. The commander-in-chief of the armed forces, President Tinubu, does not think it is important to go and honor the life of servicemen who paid the ultimate price for the country. In the US, when officers are killed, the president clears his schedule, goes to the airport. They call it a dignified transfer of the bodies of fallen soldiers. When we talk about the welfare, today we have seen videos where a military officer was complaining on social media that the salary that he is paid cannot pay his transport from the northeast where he is serving to the south where he's from and back. That is transportation. Anti-Root, I find it troubling that we can sit and conveniently say that when military officers are not okay with their welfare, they can choose to resign. So it goes to spell a deeper problem with the military hierarchy. So today, if somebody claims that there is no good welfare, the least that the military could have done was come out to say, look, no, this is not the truth. This is the true position. Let us even introspect. Is there possible sabotage? Is it possible that we are budgeting money for these officers and it is not getting to them? Why is it that the response to criticism in Nigeria is gangsterism? How do you defend a position where the military go at gunpoint, abduct a citizen, torture that person for days? Let us assume that that boy had died in detention, God forbid. Will the military come out to tell us that he was in their custody? If we had not raised the alarm and everybody begin to scream, release Justice Clark, we know where he is. He's with General Adegoke. He's at the CIC. There are people who have disappeared in this country like that without trace. On every front, this is an unfortunate situation. The statement of the army is even more indicting on them. It shows an embarrassing concern about our armed forces. Let it be very clear that citizens have a right to speak up and demand welfare for the law enforcement, whether police, whether navy, because we are victims of whatever they are trying to do, and we want them to succeed. We are not enemies of the military. It is unfortunate that we are where we are today, and Nigeria must immediately have a conversation as to what we call protection and defense, because the result is evident in the war against terrorism. Why is it that the more money pumped into it, the more it is lasting, the more it is headed? What is going on with our armed forces and law enforcement system? We should talk about that.
Thank you very much, Peter. Can we have Mike back in the house? Mike, you've heard that very fiery response from Peter Eka, who's right beside you. So one question I really want to ask, has trust, or do you want to respond to Peter before I ask you your question, or should I just ask you your question directly?
Yeah, I think I should approach it this way. The world will have differences. Incidentally, I'm one of his followers online, and this is the first time we're meeting. I'm not an activist. I respect his views a lot. But what we're saying is the procedures are quite not normal. It is well known. We're talking the primary purpose of government is welfare and security of the people. And we're not talking about only security. Look at the other areas of the polity, the economy, agric. We're not doing well. It's in the public domain that only 7% of the budgetary allocation to the military was released. So you cannot put something on nothing. We appreciate the fact it's just the process and the procedure of the approach from the soldiers. That this is a regimental service. They are trained to obey orders. And that is not to say that when you obey orders, when you are given an unlawful order, you should go and obey an unlawful order. Okay, but there are very various channels laying their complaint.
Okay, can
Yes.
I throw my question at you now? I know what you're explaining, the bit about, not exactly the full amount of allocation has been budgeted or has been given to the recipients of this venture. But notwithstanding, there's still certain parameters that cannot be crossed and should be corrected. Like, for instance, has trust between citizens and uniformed institutions eroded to the point where explanation no longer changes perception? Because that's exactly what you're doing now. And how do you now begin to change the perception and end the trust of the citizens that you choose to protect?
Sorry, again, I didn't get that question very well.
I said, as trust between citizens and uniformed institutions eroded to the point where explanation no longer changes perception.
See, there is general lack of confidence between the military and the civilian populace.
Why is that? Why is that? Why is that the case?
Even among the police, which is the.
Why is that the case?
It is institutional failure on all aspects, both from the citizens and the police and our security forces. For instance, you see people coming in to give volunteer information. People are not willing. Okay, go to Borno State, where you have the epicenter of all these crises. They pay more allegiance to the terrorists than to government. They pay taxes to all these people. So it's an institutional failure. And the moment we begin to address it, to build the people's confidence, to support the military, we will continue to go in circles.
Okay, thank you. Let's get back to this thing in the House. Now, if soldiers, cannot openly raise welfare concerns, does that silence deepen moral issues and resentment over time? And what precedent does this case set for how soldiers and citizens speak publicly about military operations?
I think they are not aware about the concern because
Who is not aware about the concern?
The soldiers, there's no place in the Constitution that says a soldier cannot complain about his welfare. In 2005, I did a petition to the Chief of Army Staff, General Martin Luther Agwai, about the welfare of soldiers in my battalion. And I complained bitterly about what is happening. And to my surprise, he set a board of inquiry. General Martin Luther Agwai, the former Chief of Army Staff, in 2004, 2005, 2006, he set a board of inquiry to examine that complaint I sent to him. So soldiers have the right to petition their commanders, to petition their leaders, to the commander-in-chief, and tell them that, hey, we're not well taken care of. We are being brutalized in the front line. We are being brutalized in the battlefield. But I will not advise them to go to the social media and start messing up the integrity of the military or the army. The only procedure that they can do is that write to your commanding officer, write to your GOC, write to your brigade commander, tell them this is the complaint you have. Don't shut up. Because if you keep quiet, you might be caught off the line of action.
Do you also think that they resorted to this, although there's allegations that Justice Crack paid the soldiers to give him this information? We don't know whether that is true or false.
I don't know about that.
But do you also feel that within the military itself, there's been frustration at getting their complaints across, and they felt that the only way to make this thing public is the best way so that they can now maybe get the reaction?
Well, for me, I think if a soldier want to perhaps go online or want to speak about whatever the issue is, I think he might be brutalized or maybe get locked up. And that is why the military has its own social media policy, which is all over the world. But I am saying there are procedures, there are processes. If you are not happy with what is happening in your base, write a letter to your commanding officer or whatever the case may be. Yes, that's what I'm saying.
That might have been done and they still haven't gotten the desired result.
No, I tell you the truth, Ruth. The Nigerian Army has a very, very effective structure in place. There is no how you send a petition to the Chief of Army Staff and they will not address that petition. The petition must be addressed. But what the Army is saying, come to us, tell us your problem. Don't go to the social media. I understand. But that of Justice Crack, the reason why he was arrested, I think it's a flaw, and I think the Army should not do that again. What they should do next time, you invite this person and say, hey, this is your concern. Okay, we're going to investigate it and we're going to get back to you. And I tell you the truth. Everything Justice Crack has said about the Army is the truth. The Army needs to go back to the drawing board and assess that and ensure that they work on it and make sure that those who put their life to protect this state are well taken care of. Okay. They are not asking for so much. I give you my life. Life is the nexus between birth and death. So when I give you my life to protect this state, giving me electricity is not a big deal. Giving me proper welfare is not a big deal. Taking care of my children and sending them to school is not a big deal. Taking care of my wife when I'm past or when I'm gone or when I'm killing in action is not a big deal. So those who put their life on the line, I keep on saying, ensure you take very good care of them.
I hope this whole brouhaha would hasten the
Yeah, it's a good talk for the army. Yeah, it's a good talk. And it's all for national development.
The action.
Yeah, I agree.
You understand? But anyway, we're going for a break right now and we'll be right back. Gabriel Kopoti, as always, says, see you right back soon on Perspectives. Welcome back to Perspectives. Can we have Peter back in the house, please? Now, Peter, there have been allegations of mistreatment during justice detention before transfer. What can you clarify about that? And how do such claims affect public trust and the emotional framing of the case?
In all honesty, this incident does not help any party. It does not help the military, does not help the country, and we all must ensure that issues like this are handled, you know, in the best interest of our nation. I have worked with the National Human Rights Commission, and I can tell you that what is going on with the military authorities will need to ask themselves, the armed forces, are laws made for officers or are officers made for laws? Because I'm very concerned that it will get to a point where military officers will have to, when you hear private conversations and concerns about people, the quality of food that is given to them, and them resorting to the fact that maybe social media influencers may be best suited to speak up for them. We wonder what they have explored internally that failed or did not work, and they had to resort to this point. All the allegations that were made against, that have been, you know, made against the military in public space and all that, I have confirmed because I have had the opportunity to meet with Justice Crack at the DSS detention facility, and it is a tragedy what happened, and this incident must not be allowed to happen. Justice Crack personally, and from physical evaluation of, yes, he was. So he was taken from a public eatery somewhere in Abuja, and before he was taken, the military jammed his network. He could not make calls, he could not take calls, could not send text, data could not work. So he was stranded at a point. And then officers from nowhere who did not identify themselves as military officers were rather pretending that they were from other law enforcement agencies because they were in mufti and could not be identified. Walked up to him and before you knew, drew out their guns and asked him not to move. He was hooded, immediately tied, and then lifted into their car, and the military took their car. En route, he was taken into the military facility at the DIA. And for the number of days that Justice was with the military, according to his own report, he was blindfolded all through and confirmed even by the DSS. He was kept and told to be dried during the day and then kept in a wet room at night, stripped and kept in that condition. And the military instructed the DSS that the blindfold should not be taken off until they leave the DSS premises, because he was weeks there in the middle of the night after the public outcry. And while he was there, I could confirm, because you could see the injuries and swelling to his wrist and his ankles. He said he will be handcuffed and put his hands at the back, and then at night the handcuffs will also be put at the legs. So bad that immediately he got to the DSS facility, and thanks to the DSS, because with all indication they have proven to be even more professional and shown humanity, he was taken to the DSS medical facility. Even up till 2 days ago when I visited him, he still had to see the doctor. His blood pressure is high, and also he has gotten cold from chest compresses and congestion by his throat. How can a military that knows that you have a Department of Civil Military Relations, even if a person commits an offense, anti-route, are there no legal and legitimate ways to address them? If the military knew that you do not have the power to arrest and detain, the same DSS could have been used to invite. The same Nigerian police could have been used. You can get a warrant, you can go and search. We do not advocate for any person to break the law, but even when law is broken, there should be a procedure. Nobody should walk outside the ambits of the law, because you are arrogating powers to yourself, and it only what you are trying to do is to use criminality to cure illegality. Anything could have happened. How does the military explain a situation where a person is taken into your custody without trace? Not the wife, not the family, not a lawyer. And that is the military of the country that we have. So all of the things you hear on social media about the torture are not just allegations or speculations. This is the story of Justice Mark Chidebere himself. And now he has to be recovering in DSS custody. So our Nigerian military and our armed forces must know. Imagine a situation where the military invites people or journalists to say, look, security is the welfare or is the duty of every person. You need people to give you intelligence. We do not want a situation where there is this kind of trust deficit. This is what is going on. This is what can be looked into. We can improve on this and this. It helps everybody to build a level of trust that at the end works in the best interest of all parties rather than resort to this. I think that it is a very unfortunate situation. Nobody should be made to suffer in this manner. Justice Crack is a father. He's a law-abiding citizen. To the best of my knowledge, he's not been accused of any crime in a country where even terrorists are holding so-called stakeholder meeting with police and law enforcement and military in Katsina, and the terms and conditions for those meetings are put together by the terrorists. Do you know that in those terrorist meetings in Katsina, terrorists who killed law enforcement agents come there with the uniform of the military officers and police officers and give instructions that our law enforcement should come in mufti? What a country. And today we are sitting down to discuss justice. Nigeria is the fourth most terrorized nation in the world. The military of the fourth most terrorized nation in the world has time to be taking a social media influencer to court. You wonder why insecurity will continue to deteriorate. It is unfortunate. The military must do better.
Thank you very much, Peter, for that. Now, can I have Mr. Mike, please? I want to ask, Justice Crack has been transferred to DSS custody. So what does this step now signal in terms of severity or classification of a case? What's the next step now that he's in DSS?
Well, I think it's quite unfortunate if I have to rely on what Peter has just said, because he's a first-hand witness, or if based on what he said himself. And you can see that the State Security Service, because security, let us not gloss over it. Security has been breached, undermining the military. But the military also mishandled the matter. They should have handed this matter over to the State Security Service for proper investigation. You cannot be a judge in your own case. So now that it has been handed over, the SSS should now investigate the matter. But on my own part, I'm not speaking. You see, the SSS is a professional intelligence agency. It will be provided with all the necessary medical facilities. Be treated, first of all, because of the allegation that he was maltreated, he has to be treated first and be in a sound mind, a good position, before being interrogated to know the next line of action. And two options. Is either he's charged or he is released. But I would advise, because of the controversy and reactions that this thing has generated, and the way the military handled it, I think the best option is to caution him and let others too, other influencers, know that there must be a limit between national security and influencing of the public. Okay.
Now, Dixon, you've heard how deep that this whole issue has now become, and it's really thrown light into very uncomfortable truths that we are trying to see if we can at least change. So, do you think soldiers should have a safe channel to report their grievances without being held, being victimized? Or does the system suppress concerns about such complaints?
Well, I don't think the system suppresses concerns about such complaint. I just gave you an instance when I also sent a petition to the Army headquarters to General Martin Luther Agwai, and he addressed the petition. There's no how you send a petition to the military hierarchy or even the appropriate superior authority, the ASA, that they will not respond. They will definitely respond.
Justice Crack's case might not have emerged.
No, Justice Crack is a civilian. I'm talking about from soldier perspective.
No, I'm saying that even within the soldiers themselves, it must be some frustration. It must be out of frustration that they went to Justice Crack in the first place, or they opened up to Justice Crack.
No, that's what I'm saying. I think some of them don't know
that. Because if the matters are being handled properly, they will not need to go to
some soldiers perhaps don't know they can write a letter. Perhaps.
Oh, why won't they? Isn't that an automatic?
I think this is an avenue for us to also educate them. You can also petition the Ministry of Justice. If your brother or sister dies in action in the area of military negligence or mechanical negligence, you can petition the Ministry of Justice. In 2002 or so, some group of soldiers from the United Kingdom were going to Afghanistan. There was an error in the helicopter and all the soldiers died in action. And the family of those soldiers sued the Ministry of Defense and said, no, you didn't take care of the situation. And the court of law in the United Kingdom ask the military to pay compensation to those people. So we cannot run a country where somebody will come and serve the military and just die carelessly, or just think maybe you can go any operation without having all the appropriate mechanism, the tactical composition, the mechanical composition, the equipment, and the personal protective equipment. You don't give it to these guys and they die carelessly. You can sue the Ministry of Justice and they must compensate your family. But what I'm trying to say in a nutshell is that the soldiers must take a departure from the social media. Channel a complaint by writing to the Chief of Army Staff, to the Chief of Defense Staff. If they see that if there's nobody paying listening here, then you can take it to the presidency.
Do you think a crisis like this, the fact that the social media has now bust the lid open,
I'm happy it happens, yeah.
Yes. Do you think that the advantage would now be that they will look within?
Yes, the army will look within.
To now take
the army will look within.
Steps
the army will look within
to avoid such occurrences.
Yeah, one thing I like about the army is that they have listening ear. They will look within and they're going to assess the situation. And I pray if they listen to this very issue,
for this to happen?
It's so disturbing why it's happening, because it's very disturbing.
You were in the army like what, 10, 15 years ago, and the complaints that you made there are still the complaints that are being made.
Yes, as of 23 years ago.
So in terms of growth and progress, that's not very
not encouraging. So the army needs to find a lasting solution, not temporary solution. Because if I have a problem like this personally 29 years ago, and I'm seeing Justice Crack now, I think as I did, Justice Crack should be a very young guy. As of now, Justice Crack is crying on the same issues. Then that tells you that the army has not addressed the issue. That situation is there. Motivation must be seen as the key component in the survival of any soldiers and officers. And also their welfare is very important. And I will advise the government, look into the welfare of these soldiers in the battlefield. What can 50,000 naira do for a soldier in the battlefield as their extra allowance or ration cash allowance? This is just an abuse of professionalism. This is an assault on their welfare. They should take care of those who protect the territorial integrity of this great country. Nothing more, nothing less. Arresting Justice Crack was an error from the Nigerian army, and this should never happen again. If they want things to be done properly, they also need to do things properly. Don't go after those who made constructive analysis or constructive criticism against you, and you think you can just go and shut them up by rifle or by guns. That is very, very wrong. The Nigerian army needs to apologize to Justice Crack. They need to apologize to his family and say, we are sorry, we got it wrong, because there's no big deal for them to say they are sorry, they got it wrong.
Do you see that ever happen?
Yeah, it can. It's an operational issue. But if it doesn't happen, I think the family can sue the Nigerian army to court for damages, because what has happened to this guy is an error, and the Nigerian army should not have that play again in our space, because it has gone viral. It has opened a lot of wounds, and a lot of issues are going on. Last week, last few months ago, I went to Bonny Camp and I saw my classmate. His hands has been amputated, and I look at him and say, oh my God, I've not seen him for 29 years. And immediately I cited him, I said, Ahmed, what happened to your hands? He said, well, he lost his hand. It did not east. And to date, that hand has not been replaced, no artificial hands. And I said, okay, between now and December, if the army don't do anything about these hands or give you an artificial hand, I personally will get you an artificial hand.
How long was it?
I think it was a few years ago, but he told me that the army is working on it. And I'll advise the commanding officer 65 Battalion to work on that. This guy came to the army with his 2 hands and his 2 legs. Now one of the hands is gone. This is what we're talking about, motivation. This is what Justice Crack is trying to talk about. I saw it with my 2 eyes. Yeah, in 65 Battalion. Coincidentally, I was born in 65 Battalion, where my father served, when my father was a soldier, because I grew up in 65 Battalion, then we're in Sokoto State. So, as a barrack boy, seeing what has gone wrong, in the military system, and whatever the case may be, and also being a soldier, my father being a soldier, my elder brother being a soldier, my younger brother has put in 25 years of service as a soldier. We love the army. We love this country. So, the country should see motivation as a key component when it comes to soldiery. Don't treat your soldiers like cows. Don't treat them like animals. Treat them like gold. They are golden tools to this great country. If not for the military, we will not have a country called Nigeria. And the Nigerian Army, the Nigerian Navy, the Nigerian Air Force, they are the last resort in any country's defense. So we must not, abuse anyone who come out to complain about their welfare and motivation. It is a basic necessity that the Nigerian military must look into. You can't give those who kill our officers and men, treat them well. They should have even taken Justice Crack to Operation Safe Corridor. If you can have Operation Safe Corridor where you rehabilitate those who kill our officers and men, why brutalize someone who complain about the welfare of officers and men? That is an error from the Nigerian Army, and it's regrettable.
Thank you. Can we have Peter back in the house, please? Now, Peter, after you just listened to what the passionate plea from Dixon, and in reflection of that, I want to also ask: in fast-moving security cases, how can institutions balance operational secrecy with timely communication to prevent misinformation from shaping public judgment?
Once an institution is professional and work by the rules, you will not need to resort to mischief. Let us not talk about, coming to social media and making it look like it is an aberration that has never... Even in the US war in Iraq and the current one going in Iran, CNN and other news networks have reported shortcomings of the US military. What was the response of the US military? The Secretary of War came out and said, your position is not correct. The Pentagon is doing this, we are doing X, Y, Z to ensure we strengthen. As long as you are not coming here to say that you are releasing communication signals with how you are contacting troops or active war procedures, what exactly? I think that it is a clarion call on the Minister for Defense, General Christopher Gwabin Musa, retired. When he was taken out as CDS and appointed as Minister for Defense, there was a lot of celebrations. Nigerians believe that a fine officer has come and maybe there will be a difference. Soldiers who we had interacted with, especially younger soldiers, were optimistic that possibly their welfare will be better under his leadership and under these current armed forces that we have. The question is, are you people living up to expectation? As Mr. Dixon rightly said, I stayed in Dodan Barracks for some time. What we see going on in the military, everybody should speak up for a better law enforcement or military, because a well-motivated military is a more protected country. I know a military officer who was shot in the leg, and for up to 10 years as we are speaking, is still moving with an iron rod that was fixed at the orthopedic hospital in Igbobi. Guess what, Auntie Ruth? The entire medical bills are being paid by this officer. He has become so broke and has almost become a beggar. A person who gave his life to save this country. While I was there visiting some persons in that same barracks, there were military officers' wives whose husband had been lost at the war in the Northeast about 6 years ago. They were never informed until the day that it was few days to when they were posting new officers to take over their apartments. They were called into the garrison to let them know that your spouses had gone and you will need to vacate these premises. This is not how a country should be. Any country where the law enforcement and the leadership of your military is competing to be who will be more corrupt between the military and the politician is in trouble. In Nigeria today, the National Assembly is on the mandate, judiciary on the mandate, INEC on the mandate, everybody is on the mandate. We hope that our military is not on the mandate, because if we get to that point where law enforcement becomes partisan or begins to dance to the whims and caprices of politicians and political actors, we are in serious trouble. Nigeria has serious security issues to deal with. Our military cannot be so idle. We want them to win the war and we want their lives to be protected. I love the military because it is a very, very huge sacrifice for you to do. And in doing that, we must continue to speak up for a better military and a better country. The institutions, there is complete collapse and trust deficit. We must rebuild it. And I agree with Mr. Dixon that it is not too much for the military to come out, issue a statement apologizing to Justice Crack, giving a compensation and assuring Nigerians that moving forward we will do better. Nigerians want to see a military that works to protect them, where they can be proud to say whatever that happens, we have a military that will work by the rule of laws and not work in this kind of gangster or criminal manner.
Thank you so much for that. Mr. Mike, what do you have any last words to say? Because I think Dixon and Peter have said a lot. Do you have any last words, closing conclusions?
With the sentiments, with with the sentiments expressed not only by my co-panelists but all over the country, I believe very strongly that the State Security Service will intervene. We have had cases where some people were wrongly arrested, and the SSS, without people going to court, pays compensation. Even when they go to, people go to court, we have to observe rule of law. I agree that this issue was mishandled, but there must be a solution, and I think with the intervention of the SSS, this matter will be resolved.
Thank you so much, Mr. Michael Jeffo, for your closing remark. Thank you so much, Dixon Osagie, for your strong for your strong comments, and thank you very much, Peter Eka, as usual, too, for your very vibrant and very energetic points that you brought out today.
I think we also need to thank our soldiers and officers who have put their life on the line to protect this great country. Let's try to be a blessing to them, those who are still serving and those veterans who are out there. Let's try and get them jobs and ensure that we tell them thank you for serving this great country, Nigeria. And I strongly believe that Nigeria will be great again.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, all of you, for a very vibrant conversation this morning. So as this case continues through official channels, the larger national questions remains unsolved. How does a country protect both security and liberty without losing public trust? Because ultimately, the true strength of any institution is measured not only by its power to enforce order, but by the confidence citizens still have that justice will be fair, transparent, and worthy of trust.